All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're doing a deep forensic dive into a single, incredibly powerful verse from the Qur'an, specifically from Surah Maryam. Our goal here is to really unpack all the layers of meaning, theological, human, you name it, all guided by a classic scholarly analysis of the text.
Now, everything we're about to discuss is drawn directly from the source text. It's a detailed scholarly commentary, what's known as a tafsir, on this chapter. So we're going to be methodically walking through its arguments step by step to really get a handle on how classical scholarship approached this verse. Think of it as a rigorous, text-based investigation.
And here it is. This is the verse at the very heart of our study. It captures a moment of just profound, raw human anguish. You have Maryam, a figure of immense spiritual standing, wishing not just for death, but for complete and total oblivion, to be a thing forgotten. This cry of despair, well, it's the central mystery our source text is trying to solve. To get to the bottom of this, we've got a clear roadmap. We'll start with the cry itself, then dig into the scholarly interpretations of what caused it. After that, we'll look at the immediate divine response, examine the very first words of the infant Jesus, and finally, we'll zoom out to see what this all means for the bigger theological picture of life, death, and awareness.
Okay, so let's start with the narrative itself. The scene is incredibly stark, right? You have Maryam all alone in the middle of a miraculous birth, and she's driven to the trunk of a palm tree by the sheer pain of labor. It's in this moment of total isolation and agony that she speaks these words.
You see, the entire theological discussion really hinges on this single moment. Her words, "Oh, I wish I had died before this and was a thing forgotten." This isn't just a passing thought. It's a powerful, gut-wrenching expression of suffering that demands a really deep investigation. This is the puzzle that the commentators in our source text are trying to solve. And that brings us to the core analytical question of the tafsir. What was the real source of this overwhelming despair? The text actually lays out two primary lines of thought. I mean, this is the paradox, isn't it? How could Maryam, who was chosen by God for this incredible miracle, someone who literally spoke with angels, reach a point of wishing for non-existence? Was this a crisis of faith, or was something else going on entirely? This is the very question the scholars dive into. So, the source presents two distinct possibilities. The first one is deeply, deeply human. It suggests her cry was a natural reaction to the unbelievable physical agony of childbirth. The second, though, shifts the focus to a psychological and spiritual torment, the dread of what would happen after the birth. She knew she'd have to face her community with a newborn baby and no husband, and she was terrified of the false accusations she knew were coming. This wasn't just about her reputation. It was about protecting a divine miracle from being dragged through the mud. Now, while acknowledging the reality of the physical pain, the commentary ultimately concludes that the fear of slander was the weightier, more profound reason. And why is that? Because this fear was tied directly to the sacred trust she had from God. Her anguish wasn't just for herself. It was for the honor of the divine secret she carried. Her wish to be forgotten was a desperate desire to protect that secret from being misunderstood and blasphemed. So, in the face of this profound despair, whether from physical pains, spiritual anguish, or a combination of both, the divine response is immediate. It's miraculous. The entire narrative pivots right here, from a moment of human crisis to one of divine intervention. A voice calls out, giving her immediate comfort, telling her not to grieve. And this is immediately followed by direct, tangible actions. God provides her with water and food. He doesn't just send a comforting thought. He sends real physical sustenance to address her immediate needs. Let's just break these interventions down for a second. First, you have the voice of reassurance. Commentators actually debate whether this was the newborn Jesus himself performing his first miracle, or if it was the angel Gabriel. Second, a stream miraculously appears at her feet, giving her water to drink and to purify herself. And third, the dry, dead palm trunk she was leaning on is commanded to produce fresh, ripe dates, a perfect high-energy food for someone who has just gone through childbirth. This whole sequence is a perfect illustration of the Islamic theological concept of rizq. Now, rizq isn't just about material stuff like food and water. It's more comprehensive than that. It's divine sustenance in all its forms. So here, God provides for Maryam's body with the stream and the dates, and he provides for her soul with that voice of reassurance. It's a totally holistic response to her holistic suffering.
So after Maryam returns to her people, she's met with the exact slander that she feared. But as she was instructed, she stays silent and just points to the child. And it's at that moment that the infant Jesus speaks. His first public declaration is analyzed in incredible detail in our source text. And this is his statement, a profound theological declaration. He doesn't just say, hey, I'm a prophet. He specifically invokes peace upon himself at 3 critical points in any being's existence. The commentary we're studying unpacks exactly why these 3 moments are so significant. So the verse singles out these 3 universal stages: birth, death, and resurrection. And this isn't just some random list. As the source explains, each one of these represents a moment of massive transition, of vulnerability, and of immense existential challenge for any human being. Right, the Tafsir offers a really powerful insight here. It explains that these 3 moments are considered the most frightening for a person. The day you're born, you leave the safety of the womb for a completely unknown world. The day you die, you witness realities you've never seen before. And on the day of resurrection, you stand completely alone for judgment. They are moments of ultimate solitude and fear. So when Jesus says, "Peace is on me," he's declaring that God has granted him a special kind of security and safety through these terrifying transitions. It's a divine gift. It's a proclamation that he is protected by God precisely at the moments of our greatest human vulnerability. And, of course, this declaration about death and resurrection naturally leads the commentary into a much broader discussion on the nature of existence itself. Specifically, what happens to us after physical death? Think about it. Maryam wished to be forgotten, which sounds a lot like annihilation. But Jesus' statement points towards being raised alive. This brings up a fundamental theological question that the source text really dives into. What actually happens when we die? Is it just lights out? Is consciousness over? The Qur'anic perspective, as the Tafsir explains it, gives a pretty clear answer. For an ordinary person, death isn't the end. It's a transition into an intermediary state, known as barzakh, where awareness continues. But for martyrs, the shuhada, the Qur'an is even more explicit. It says they are not dead, but are alive and being provided for, which points to a much higher, more active state of consciousness. And the commentary brings this all full circle, back to Jesus. His statement, "The day I am raised alive," is presented as the ultimate confirmation of this principle. Life, consciousness, awareness, they aren't just extinguished by physical death. Instead, they transition into a new form, one that is ordained and sustained entirely by God. And this is absolutely critical to note. Before he declares peace upon himself, the very first words the infant Jesus speaks are, "Indeed, I am the servant of Allah." The source text really emphasizes this. It's the foundation of his entire identity and his mission in the Islamic tradition. His miraculous nature, his divine protection, it's all framed within the context of his servitude to the one God. So we end with this question for you to reflect on. We started with a single verse, a cry of despair from a woman in the agony of childbirth. But by following this scholarly analysis, we've journeyed through human psychology, divine miracles, the vulnerabilities of existence, and the very nature of life after death. It just goes to show how a single line of scripture can open up a vast universe of meaning, inviting us to look deeper every single time.